In this lecture, we're going to solve the exercise problems together. If you haven't tried to approach them yourself, I strongly recommend that you pause the video now and give it a try. Actually, in my personal opinion, what qualifies a try is that if you cannot finish the question, you should be able to identify exactly where the difficulty is, such as I can't stack these two rows together, or I cannot figure out why my code is reaching out of the index. In fact, the more exact you can describe your question, the better try you made. Most of the times, the reason you weren't able to find the answer is because you did not ask the right question. If you can describe your problem in much details, you will say the solution is so obvious. That being said, one typical description that indicates you didn't really try is, I don't know how to do this. Okay, so now ask yourself, have you tried? Yes? Okay, so let's tackle them together. Well, all these exercises can be completed in one line of code. So they are all supposed to be easy. Well, perhaps, except the last one. In the first question, we are supposed to mimic the column selection operation. It's quite straightforward to do this with the ix indexer. As long as you remember by heart that in the ix indexer, there are two parts. The first part is to select the rows, and the second is to select the columns. Here, we only have a column selection, so data dot ix, the first part will be an all select. That is simply done with a colon. And the second part, pass the two required columns names as a list, city and customer name. Run this, and it's done. Next one is almost identical to the first one. Instead of asking for selections by column names, it's using column numbers. So, simply replace the names with numbers. Run this, that's it. Moving to the third, here we need to pick up rows rather than columns. So we should put the condition on the first part of the ix indexer. Data.ix 0 to 4. And we don't have any condition for columns, so you can comma and write a colon to select them all. But this is pretty much unnecessary, so we just delete the whole part. Because by default, the ix indexer will select all columns. Now run this. Problem solved. The fourth exercise asks us to put rows and columns together. So we need conditions on both the first and the second part of the ix indexer. Data dot 10 to 15, a comma, and customer name and city. That's it. Now execute it. Not hard, right? Now the last question. The condition is easy to apply. Simply pick the customer name column. The tricky part is how to select the first customer and the last customer. I'm sure there are many solutions to this exercise. Here's my version. I start from the easiest job, the column. It's just data.ix column and comma and customer name. And on the row condition, I also know the index of the first customer is 0. And I also know that there are two customers to select. So I turn this into a list of numbers, but I don't know the index of the last customer. I mark it with X for unknown. So what's special about the last guy? Well, it's at the end of the data frame, right? And because the index starts counting from 0, the index for the last guy should be the length of the data frame minus 1. And I know how to get the length of the data frame. It's just len data. Well, that's it. I store the length of the data frame to a variable named total. Then the last row is total minus 1. Perfect. Now run this, and we got it. Now, I mentioned that you can finish all questions with one line of code, right? Can we do this one too? For sure. It's not that straightforward though. It's data.ix and a list 0 and data.tail 1 dot index dot to list and select the first element by indexing 0, then select customer name column. Let me explain this part concerning the last row a bit. Well, first, we have seen that in this part, data tail, it selects the last n columns. With the parameter 1, it selects the last 1 column. The result of this function is a data frame. The index of this data frame is then extracted by the index attribute, which is then converted to a standard Python list by the toList function. So far, we have a list containing only one element, which is the index of the last column. So we access it by indexing 0. It might sound complicated, but as you get familiar with these functions, they can actually flow out of your fingers. Okay, so does this magic work? Well, let's try this. Oh, it works fine. So that's my solutions for these questions. If you have any idea or a better solution to this exercise, you are more than welcome to post it in the course discussion board. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next lecture.